Okay. Wrong one. Okay. Mark, are you there?
I am here. Just to let you know, just got a text from Councilmember Johnson that she will not be there this evening. She is not feeling well.
Okay, so is it okay if we go ahead and get started with the council interviews?
Yeah, absolutely. Go right ahead. I'll let you guys ask the questions. I'll be listening and I'll provide feedback when you guys are done.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you.
Okay. So we have 2 interviews for Planning Commission for tonight, and we have Angie Armstrong starting us out at 5 o'clock. So if you want to come have a seat. Hello. Okay, thank you. Yes. So we have a few questions that we're going to ask. As you heard, Mark's participating by Zoom, so he's going to listen in. So we will go ahead and get started with that. My name's Tammy. I am the Mayor Pro Tem and Council Member Ward 2. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and why you're interested in being on the Planning Commission?
My name's Angie Armstrong. I have lived in a 6-block radius in Evans for 47 of my 53 years, so a little familiar. I love where I live. I love this city. It's hard for me to call it a city because it's always been a town to me. I've seen some things that I like. I've seen some things that I don't like. And I just would like to be a part of making Evans better. I've been a business owner within the city for 27 years in my home, married, 2 children, grandson, and just want to make my city better.
Thank you. Yes, go ahead.
Have you ever served on a board or a commission? If so, please tell us about your experience. If not, have you ever attended or participated in public hearings?
I served on the ad hoc committee with Jeff for the RVs and trailers. Again, did that for the exact same reason, to make it better and make our city better and to make a fair conclusion for the city and the citizens. I am also on the board for Santa Cops of Weld County, and that's it.
Angie, how are you tonight?
I'm well, Jeff. How
Thanks
are
for
you?
coming in. In your own words, tell us what land use planning means to you and how it relates to development in our beautiful city.
Land use to me means making good use of areas, cleaning up areas, adding things to our city that can help our city, whether it be revenue or people. And I'm sorry, what was the second part of that?
It just relates to development in our city. Yep, you're encompassing all that, just the way I like to hear it. Thanks.
Hello, Chris Delaney, Ward 3. Thanks for the interest in joining this. My question for you is, how would you handle a situation when you were presented with conflicting information or opposing opinions?
Well, I take all the facts are facts, and use them to come up with the best solution. I know there's always going to be opposition. I think just listening calmly and trying to come to a conclusion, a compromise, and then a conclusion.
Thank you very much.
And then how do you envision the city of Evans evolving over the next decade?
Oh, that is such a tough question because I still love the town of Evans. um, I like the building that we're doing. I would like to see more income come into the city before we start building more houses, coming up with water solutions. I love that we have the businesses that we have. I love that, God bless you, that we spotlight those. I would love to welcome more small businesses and big ones too, because that's revenue.
Thank you. Do you have any questions for us as the council?
I don't. This is all so new to me that I don't know a lot of what to expect. No.
It can be a little nerve-wracking sitting up here and being like, "Ooh, you know."
Much.
But
I've been at the same job for 28 years and I haven't had an interview since then. So,
but you know what? Everybody up here, they're really great to work with, and the people of Evans are really great to work with. So, all right. Well, if you don't have any questions or anything else, anybody else have anything they want to bring? Well, this concludes our interview. Mark, did you have any questions?
No, not at all. Hey, Angie, I appreciate your time and coming out to interview for the Planning Commission. It's nice to see you come out and want to possibly step up for the city of Evans. I know you've been a longtime resident. I've seen you in the audience and at the town halls and everything. So I appreciate you coming in.
my pleasure. Thank you, Mark.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
What are the expectations from here for our interviewees? Who reaches out to them? How many positions are open?
So this one has just one applicant, so I'm assuming one position open. I don't know if I will be reaching out or Mark, but one of us will reach out and let them know.
If she's the only applicant for it, and if the council decides that that's the direction they want to go, then if she's appointed, then I will reach out to her and let her know.
Okay,
Perfect.
thank you. Okay, let's move on to the next interviews, which would be for Water and Sewer Board. If they're here.
The third applicant for the Water and Sewer Board emailed and indicated that he was not going to be able to attend. So you just have the first two interviews for Water and Sewer Board tonight, for two open positions.
Okay. And is Shelby here? Is John here?
They were scheduled for, I believe it was 5:15 and then 5:30 respectively, so you might want to give them another minute or so.
Okay. We'll wait a few. Yeah, no problem.
Tim, this is telling me it's not working right again.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, you'll just have to read the, subsections here, so it's to go into executive session. And nobody will talk to you.
Oh, he's right there.
Are you Miss Shelby? All right, if you want to come up and have a seat.
Makes sense, thank you.
Front and center.
Fantastic.
Hello, welcome, and thank you for being here. My name's Tammy. I'm the Mayor Pro Tem. We will, of course, be doing a short interview with you. We're all going to ask a different question, but feel free if you think of any you want to ask during, you can, or if you want to wait and ask after, you can.
Sure, thank you.
Tell us a little bit about yourself and why you're interested in serving on the board.
Sure. So I work as an economics researcher for the Cooperative Institute for Research in the Atmosphere. That's a cooperative institute between Colorado State University and NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. During my education as an economist, I took classes like water law and water economics, and I had a big interest in water. Unfortunately, my water research is mostly about severe weather events because I do a lot of weather service work. So, things like flooding outcomes, not municipal water. But I still really enjoyed those courses. I'm new-ish to Evans. I've lived here for about a year, and I was looking for ways to get involved with the community, different volunteer options, and this came up, and I thought it was really aligned with some of my interests. Some of my favorite projects I worked on had to do with water rights, stream flow accounting. For Colorado specifically, I did a report on that. And then we did in our water economics course, we did a lot with water rates and allocation and stuff like that. So I thought this was a really cool opportunity to volunteer, get more involved with the community, and then also, utilize some of my interests and background.
Thank you.
Have you ever served on a board or a commission? If so, please tell us about your experience. If not, have you ever attended or participated in public hearings?
Yes, back when I lived in West Virginia, about 7 years ago, I did serve on the board for a volunteer fire department. Again, just being involved with the community there. I also was a city council member for that town as well. So I did a lot of public speaking there.
Jeff Crabtree, Ward 2. In your own words, describe what the role of water and sewer board should play in the relation to city utilities.
I think that the board can help advise. You know, it's a voice for the community. You know, I'm not sure how the water board is, or what the water board is made up of here. I think it's 5 members. I don't know the backgrounds of your current members, but it does give an opportunity for the community to be involved in potential utility conversations that otherwise the community is not involved in, which I think is important. And then help advise some, because it gives a different perspective or viewpoint for those utility decisions.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you, Shelby, for coming out. My name is Chris Delaney. I'm with Ward 3. How would you handle a situation when you are presented with conflicting information or opposing opinions?
So as a researcher, my go-to is going to be research. So looking for other sources of information. As far as a conflict, you know, always hearing both sides, and then again, looking at the research and trying to find that common ground, because there's always, you know, one person's truth, the other person's truth, and then, you know, what's actually going on. But I do, as a researcher, look to finding more information and unbiased resources to help with those decisions.
Thank you.
And last but not least question from us is, how do you envision the city of Evans evolving over the next decade?
So again, I'm, you know, a year into being a member of, you know, the city of Evans, a resident here. You know, as Colorado as a whole continues to expand and evolve, and with more people moving here, and, you know, the water crisis as it is, I believe, you know, everyone's going to have to adapt somehow to the influx of people. In my year here in Evans, I've seen a lot of new development. I'm one of those people living in a newer development here in Evans. And just in the year I've been here, it's been crazy to see the amount of development that's happened here so far. So I see a lot of expansion there already, with more businesses, more homes, more people moving here, which will mean more demand on the water and sewer and utilities as well.
Thank you. Do you have any questions for us?
Yes. So what does the commitment look like? I know that for the water and sewer board, it looks like you guys meet once a month, but outside of that meeting, what are the commitments looking like?
So as far as I know, I've also been informed of the once a month meetings. Are there any others that are required or that show up? So it's up to you what you want to attend, like city meetings, things like that. I'll be honest, some can show up to like Heritage Day, things like that. I don't particularly think I've seen like a stand for them, but I've seen members come for the city activities that we do have. So, but that part's up to you.
Okay.
Hey,
And,
Tammy, can I chime in there?
Yes.
So the Water and Sewer Board meets the once a month on the third Thursday of the month at 3:30. That's really much the only commitment from you as a Water and Sewer Board member. Meetings can go anywhere. I've seen them go as quick as 5 minutes to a couple hours. Usually outside of that, there's not really much of a commitment required by a Water and Sewer Board member, unless you want to commit some other times to some other activities, but that's generally what it is.
okay, thank you. Yeah, I think that's all my questions.
Okay. Well, thank you for your time tonight. We appreciate you coming in, and we will be getting back with you.
All right, great, thank you.
Thank you. And then is John here? John Clark. Yes, sir.
This is the hot seat.
Yes, sir. Good evening. Thank you for being here tonight. We appreciate you taking time out of your evening to come see us. My name is Tammy. I'm the Mayor Pro Tem. And as you saw, we'll be going through a small list, asking you a few questions. And if you have any or you think of any, feel free to ask while we're asking ours, or you can save them to the end and ask yours, okay?
Okay.
All right. So the first one again is tell us a little bit about yourself and why you're interested in serving on the board.
Hey, my name's John Clark, of course, and I've lived in Evans for 20 years, and I think that the water department could use a little bit of improvement, but as a whole, it has done real well in the 20 years that I have been here. And, but I would like to see it get a little bit better and perhaps be a little bit more independent from the city of Greeley, but I know that will take probably more than I'll live to see. But that's kind of my goals and my reasons.
Perfect. Thank you.
Have you ever served on a board or a commission?
Yes.
If so, tell us about your experience. If not, have you ever attended or participated in public hearings?
Okay. Yes, I served on the Zoning Board of Appeals for, I don't know, about 5 years here in the city of Evans. I also worked on the 1% sales tax.
Thank you.
Good evening, John. How are you?
Good.
In your own words, describe what role the Water and Sewer Board should play in relation to city utilities.
Well, it's one of the most crucial city utilities that we have, and most people get really upset if they don't have water or sewer. Most of the time, sewer is not a problem, but there is occasion. I think that the main thing is just to try to see to keeping the costs as low as possible and keeping the water flowing.
Mm-hmm.
It's just going to be a problem in a few years, I'm afraid.
I agree with you, John. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. My name's Chris, Ward 3. My question is how would you handle a situation when you were presented with conflicting information or opposing opinions?
Well, there's never exactly one right side, so you have to try to judge, listen and judge and decide what's really best for the city of Evans, not so much what you think is right or wrong, but what's best for the city of Evans.
Thank you, sir.
Mm-hmm.
And then how do you envision the city of Evans changing or evolving over the next decade?
What I would like to see is for the city of Evans to get to be a complete city again. But I don't know. I'm hoping that that'll happen, and it seems to be making progress that way. But yes, that would be one of my goals.
Thank you. Do you have any questions for us?
No.
Okay. Mark, do you have anything you would like to add?
No, I don't have anything to add other than, hey, John, sorry I'm not there in person to see you, but I thank you for stepping up and coming out and interviewing with us. I really appreciate it.
Well, thanks for asking me.
All right. Well, thank you for your time, and we'll be in contact with you as well.
All right. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Let me turn that off.
Oh, no, we're good. Thank you.
Okay. The next big item, the automated vehicle identification system. Are we ready to move on to that item?
Can we discuss a decision between
Oh,
those two?
yeah.
Sorry.
Sorry.
So I guess let's start with.
There's 2 open positions, right?
2 open positions.
Oh, then yeah, never mind.
Yeah.
I think they're both qualified.
I think we should talk about Avis.
I agree.
I think all the applicants this evening were more than qualified, so.
Yeah.
Yes,
In
with
both
the one
situations.
applicant, we had the one, and the two, we had the two, so yes. sir.
Perfect.
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 Clark, do you have any questions about that?
Nope, I don't have anything. I'm good. I think it works out fine. Andrew's fully qualified, so is John and the other individual.
Yeah, I think we'd be lucky to have him on the team, so.
Absolutely.
Good evening, Council. Mayor Pro Tem, Council, thank you for having me tonight. So a lot of what I'm going to show you tonight, you've seen some of this information already, right? But I think it bears repeating some of the pieces that I'm going to show you and some of the pieces that I'm going to go over tonight, just because there's a lot of legal ramifications that we've got to meet under the statute. They've had a recent amendment to the statute, so some of those legal requirements are being reiterated or strengthened, changed slightly. And the process by which we implement AVIS is really where the legal inroads meet, our actual deployment of the technology, right? So we need to make sure as a city that we take the framework of AVIS in general, which we've gone through a couple of different times in work sessions, and then that implementation of where are the machines going to be, what signage is required, what are the requirements for corridor identification. And I'm going to walk us through that here tonight. When we look at, let me see if I can jump this to the purpose of the AVIS process, right? So just essentially, we want to provide City Council with the key insights in the implementation of the automated vehicle identification system. Really, it's about not just what AVIS is now, but about where are we going to put it? How's it going to operate in our city? What are the laws? What do we have to follow? How do we ensure transparency in the communication process with our community and with our residents, right? And I think that's where maybe some of the failures have occurred in jurisdictions throughout Colorado. When there have been failures with AVIS, much of it's been communication. Much of it's been disagreement between the interpretation of the statute and how it's being implemented within their communities. So the legal requirements, I want to touch on this again. The city needs to adopt an ordinance. In the package today, you were provided a draft of the ordinance. It's not a short ordinance. There's a lot of legal requirements for this. It's currently in the hands of our new city attorney. He's going over and reviewing it. I used ordinances from multiple communities throughout Colorado to include Longmont, the city of North Glen, the city of Fort Collins, who are currently in the process of either implementing AVIS or have been using AVIS technology over the last few years. We need to adopt that ordinance. We need to make sure that our signage is meeting all of the state standards, requirements under that. The main one being at least 300 feet before the system's location for speed violations. Our implementation strategy includes two sets of cameras, one at a fixed location and one mobile. The fixed location is really very simple. right? We're going to identify the location for the fixed cameras. We'll implement them. We'll install them. We'll pull permits. We'll do all of the different requirements to put them in the roadway. And then we will affix a sign the appropriate distance under the statute, at least 300 feet from each direction of travel on that particular Avis corridor, right? And then our mobile system, a little bit more difficult to implement, a little bit more difficult to operate throughout the city, because it's, as stated, mobile, right? We're going to move it throughout corridors throughout the community. And setting up that sign is going to take requirements. It's going to take measurements. It's going to take the proper roadway conditions for us to place the equipment, right? We can't just place it anywhere. It can't be put in the roadway. It needs to be off the side of the roadway in an easement that we control. It has to have basic level ground. It can't be canted significantly. So there's some requirements that we have to meet, and everything is calibrated. So we'll be able to do those pieces. That's a training piece for the police department. We'll manage those, but making sure that we have the right signage and have the right distances, that's critical because it is statutorily required under the ordinance. So we can't make mistakes on it. If we make mistakes on it, it could invalidate the citations, and we have to make sure that we're doing that with the utmost integrity, and we stay within our boundaries and within our corridors and within our zones. And then when we use this type of technology on a CDOT-owned roadway, so not the City of Evans roadway, but like Highway 85 or Highway 34, we have to coordinate with CDOT on those pieces, and we are in that process now. We will coordinate permitting with them. We will coordinate the placing of signs. We will coordinate the operation of the machine, and we'll supply them with the data that we're using to determine that this is an area that should be a corridor. And that'll be something that you'll decide at a later date. It seems like we've talked about Avis a bunch, and we have, right? This is, I think, our third time where we've brought it forward to council. We did a large publication this time, so we told our residents that we were having this meeting. We put it out on our social media, on the city's social media pages, as kind of the kickoff for that communication and that transparency piece. But we have a first reading of this ordinance scheduled for our next council meeting, a second reading of this ordinance for the following council meeting, and at that same council meeting where we finalize the ordinance, if it is approved, I will be bringing forward corridor designation areas. And in this package, I sent two sample draft packages for what that information is going to look like. Again, statutory provisions require us, when identifying corridors, to use data, right? Quantitative, qualified data, traffic crashes, speeding citations, citizen complaints, reckless driving complaints. I've used a lot of that data, collaborated with my team to get that data put together, and we have given you two packages for that, one for 37th Street and one for 42nd Street, all right? These are significant documents, right? They're not, we didn't arbitrarily choose these locations. What we did was we looked at the data, and then I used a framework that was created for this process to put together that qualitative and that quantitative data to be looked at. And what I'm doing when I'm bringing these to you is I'm not telling you that this is a corridor, you need to approve it. What I'm telling you is that this is an area where we have quantitative data, speeding citations, traffic accidents, reckless driving complaints, complaints called in by community residents about speeding and other reckless driving activities in these areas. And that's what these documents are going to provide to you. And then you'll be able to download that data, take a look at it, review it, and determine. All we're doing is recommending that these be considered, right? So we're not telling you this is a corridor you need to approve. What I'm telling you is that I have significant data here. I think that the council should look at it. I think you should consider it. And then based on these reports, which are pretty extensive, I think you'll have enough information to make an educated determination as to whether or not that's an area where we need to use Avis to help us supplement traffic enforcement in those areas. And I want to be a key here is that This is a supplement. So we're not going to have any, we have one fixed location, right? And right now the recommendation for that fixed location is going to be out off of 37th Street, somewhere between 47th and 35th. Okay? But that will be the only fixed Avis technology. The other locations are going to be mobile. So the corridors are long. They run from, some point east in our community to some point west in our community. And the data has been broken down by segments in here to support the segments of that roadway. And with that information, I think you'll have enough data, enough critical information to determine whether or not that's an area where we want to supplement regular traffic enforcement with Avis technology. Again, the only place where we're going to have fixed Avis technology, so 365 days a year, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, is that one section out off of 37th Street. And that selection was made based on 4 traffic studies we did. We did 4 traffic studies throughout the city. That area, not counting CDOT highways, we did different technology on the CDOT highways. But that area for Evans was our highest speeding area. Had the highest number of violations, the highest number of volume of traffic, and it is immediate adjacent to our highest traffic accident intersection. So those are the reasons that we kind of identified these locations. When we look at what we have to do legally, again, we have the public announcement piece, which we've begun that. I'm working with Daniel on what that communication is going to look like over the next few months. And we have still many months before we're fully implemented and actually up and operating in this process. The warning period. The first 30 days after installation of an Avis, only warnings, no penalties may be issued for violations. That's one of the changes they made to the ordinance at the state level, is that they want to make sure that there are actually warnings being issued. In prior determinations, there were considerations as to whether or not a warning actually had to be issued, or if it was just the notice in a 30-day period to roll from the time they noticed it till the time they could actually issue citations. Our intention from the get-go is that we will give a 30-day notice. Actually, we're going to do a 35-day notice. It's going to be a 35-day window from our implementation of the technology in an area until we get to actual enforcement within that area. And we're going to roll that out boundary by boundary after they're approved. So if the council decides this is going to be a corridor, once that corridor is identified, once our technology is established, once our signage is posted, we will start that 30-day window, and I'll be moving that trailer throughout that corridor for a period of time in both directions to make sure that warnings are issued during that 30-day cycle, actually 35 for us. I want to go beyond the statutory requirement. Again, legally, we have to designate these automatic vehicle identification corridors throughout our community. We can use it in any corridor designated by resolution, or we can utilize the machine in a residential neighborhood, which is defined under the statute as being primarily residential on both sides of the roadway throughout the area, adjacent to a park, adjacent to a school, or within a area that is under construction, right, being actively worked on. So not the location overnight while the cones are out, but actively actually under construction. And then the prohibited areas for this are just can't be used on federal interstate highways, which doesn't affect Evans in any way, shape, or form because we don't have any federal highways running through our area. The corridor location potentials, I have 9 identified. 37th Street between 65th Avenue and Highway 85, Prairie View Drive from 42nd to 42nd Street, same road, different segments, right? From 35th Avenue to Highway 85. 49th Street from 65th Avenue to Industrial Parkway, 32nd Street from 29th Avenue to 11th Avenue, primarily because of crashes at that location, right? We have the intersection there where we have multiple crashes through the barricades and into the rear yards of homes. Highway 34 from 11th Avenue to the merging eastbound entrance ramp for Highway 85. It's a very high volume traffic location for us. When we have accidents up on 34, they're usually very significant, severe fatalities and or significant damage and bodily injury because of the speeds that are involved. And the 2 roadway ramps that feed to it tend to cause accidents as well, along with the amount of truck traffic that we end up getting through that corridor. And then our final corridors are 11th Avenue from 37th Street to Highway 34, 47th Avenue from 3200 to basically from the city boundary to 37th Street, and 35th Avenue from the city boundary to 37th Street. And then again from 37th Street to 49th Avenue, or 49th Street. Highway 85 from the South Platte River Bridge to the junction. It is primarily, these are the ones that will be under consideration by you, primarily because this is the area where we have significant quantitative and qualitative data to show vehicle crashes, speed concerns, complaints from our community, all of the requirements that are labeled and listed as considerations and necessary requirements for a corridor to be identified under the statute. When we look at these boundaries, the 37th Street is our longest corridor. It runs from the very western edge of the city, not quite, but close, out at 65th Street, all the way back to 85, right? This particular corridor is broken down into 4 segments. It runs from 65th to 47th, from 47th to 35th, from 35th to 23rd, and from 23rd to I-85 to Highway 85. Each one of those corridors is broken down in this report to show you the data of the number of crashes, the number of speeding violations, the number of complaints, the number of reckless driving issues in and around that specific segment. When I run the data, each one of those segments independently could substantiate AVIS technology being utilized as a supplement to traffic enforcement within the zone. The area out between 37th and 47th, by a large margin, is our highest area. Over the years, it has been our highest area over the 5 years of time frame that these reports reflect. But also, as the new construction was done out there, we've seen an increase in speed out there because of the infrastructure. Right? So the infrastructure is now divided highway, 2 lanes each direction, brand new pavement, and we're starting to see those numbers creep higher and higher out in that area, which, interestingly, at the same time, is turning more and more residential. Right, we've got residential complex being built on one side, and finished now on the north side of that construction, that area. A lot of new homes, but mostly completed as subdivisions. Right, so we've seen those two things kind of come and converge at the same time, and we're seeing our speeds increased. Our 42nd Street corridor, Prairie View Drive, runs from 35th out to 85. It's 2 separate segments, Prairie View Drive up to 23rd and from 23rd out to 85. One of our speed studies was conducted on the 42nd Street phase of that. Significant speeding concerns, significant traffic issues. And it is also one of our broader traffic crash locations as well. Prairie View Drive, not quite as high of the same type of data, but still significant speeding concerns, as well as all being part of one main thoroughfare east and west through the city. The technology, or the data supports, in my opinion, being considered, right? And the decision on what segments and on what roadways are going to be corridors will be yours, and I'll be bringing that forward to you, kind of officially, in kind of segments. I was going to try to bring you all 9 of these at once. I think it'll be overwhelming, right? Because each one of these reports is somewhere from 20 to 30 pages long, and for you to really be able to take a look at it and make a determination, I think I'll be bringing them to you in 2s and 4s. So maybe a group of 4, and then a group of 4, and then maybe 1, or maybe a group of 4, 2, and 2 over the next several months. And as we add corridors to the city, we'll work on that implementation strategy within those zones, the warning periods within those zones, and we'll just kind of roll them out timely over the period of time to ensure that we make sure we hit our required statutory provisions as far as notification, warning, signage, and the 30-day, even though we're going to use 35-day time frame. Based on this data analysis, we reviewed crash history within the proposed corridors. evaluated historical speed-related enforcement activities. I used both speed studies, which we did in relation to the Avis piece itself, 4 throughout the city. And then we have those data trailers that you've seen in the community for many, many years. And I used much of that data, and I've moved those throughout the corridors over the last, let's say 3 to 4 months, in preparation of this process to, collect data on volume, speed, and 85th percentile speeds within those corridors. We've conducted those traffic volume speed studies and then the documented patterns of excessive speeding based on our citations, complaints from the community, and we were reaching back in our records management system to pull that data out. When we look at the key considerations, they didn't change. They're the same as they were the last time I presented to you, right? It's that community impact, enhancing traffic safety and reducing speeding violations. The number one complaint I get in the community is speeding, right? It's you might think it might be something else, but over an abundance of time when I'm at a community meeting, the number one complaint I get is speeding and stop sign violations, right? They roll through the stop sign or they're speeding. Legal and policy framework for this, review the ordinance and the compliance requirements that are necessary under the ordinance. Cost and funding the program really kind of pays for itself. It's designed to pay for itself. The break-even point is somewhere around 100 citations a month, which, my officers, when they're out there operating in multiple locations throughout the city, write hundreds of violations a month. So 100 is perfectly amenable to the process that we have here. We'll find that number of violations as we move the machines through the city. And if we don't, then we have solved the problem that we're looking to solve, right? So that's what we want. We want to change drivers' behavior. The amount of the violations, if we can reduce that violation by 10, 20, 30%, that's a significant reduction in speeding. That's a big safety improvement for our community. That's a reduction in traffic crashes. That's a reduction in bodily injury. That's a reduction for our residents and those traveling through our community, both shopping and working. Some of the conservative takeaways on this, again, when I did the data research, significant speeding, which I characterize, right, my characterization as being 10 miles an hour or over, is about 1.6% of the traffic volume. Okay, and that's our citation threshold. So 10 miles an hour and over is where the citations will be written. Now, the newest portion of the ordinance, this was always determined to be kind of the, in the original ordinance, the state did allow for secondary and subsequent violations to be written under 10 miles an hour, but they really didn't clarify it very well. In the updated ordinance, they clarified it completely, right? So anything over 6 to 10 miles an hour can be written as a subsequent or second violation if chosen by the community or by the agency. But our starting point will be that 10 mile an hour threshold. Right? And we'll evaluate the program based on that, evaluate the speeds that we see based on that. But citations as a second or subsequent violation can be issued for anything 6 to 10. The enforcement volume declines over time. Every study that I've looked at has shown that. The company's own information, data, and studies show that we do reduce speed with these systems. Programs remain cost covered at very low citation levels, roughly 100, which is what I gave you earlier. And then the revenue drops over the years is the proof of the deterrence. And that's what we're hoping to see, right? We're hoping to see the revenues decrease over year. And we expect to see, anywhere from 10 to about 25% over the first 3 years, based on the studies that I've looked at. When I look at the potential positive outcomes, obviously it's jumped a screen there. Obviously, it's enhanced traffic safety. This is our number one process. This is what we're looking for. Reduce speeds and enhance traffic safety. Efficient law enforcement. As hard as my officers work, nobody works 24/7, 365. Okay, so the equipment being out there in the fixed location will work at that rate. The mobile locations will be up and down for maintenance and different purposes, and we need to move them so they won't be operating at all hours every single day, but they will be in the field and in the corridors as much as possible. It allows us to use data to kind of drive our decision making, so we can use the data from the system to provide traffic and safety analytics for our community, which is helpful because that can help my team redirect enforcement based on what data we're seeing within these zones. And then there is a revenue generation piece to this, so fines can support the public safety initiatives. That will pay for them. They will pay for the systems themselves, and then any excess revenues can be used for public safety purposes within the community. So those are beneficial across the board. And then 24/7 monitoring in our fixed location, and even though it won't be 24/7 everywhere else, when we use the mobile, it will be a significantly more amount of time than I can put any one officer at any one place within the community for any period of time. Our potential negative outcomes, did I jump on that? Did I jump it? I went past it, yeah. Public perception, right? There's gonna be a group of people who are gonna just say, you're just out to grab money from us, right? And, you know, I know that that'll be a criticism of it. The focus here is on public safety. It's on traffic, reducing speeds, traffic crashes. We're utilizing the locations that are identified by data within our community that shows us these are the areas where our crashes are occurring and our speeds occurring. There's some privacy concerns. People generally mix this up with ALPRs, right? So ALPRs are reading license plates for investigative purposes, right? So when you use an ALPR, it's there, it's reading every vehicle that goes through the intersection. It's not enforcing speed. It's not about traffic safety. It's a system that provides an opportunity for law enforcement to utilize the information to investigate criminal activity in and throughout the community, right? It provides us with information that can then be utilized to track down suspects involved in robberies, murders, shootings, thefts, shoplifting sprees, organized shoplifting, those type of criminal activities. Many people confuse the two here. They are not the same thing. The ALPRs do immediate alerts to our officers to tell us, hey, this car is stolen. Hey, the occupant of this vehicle or the driver of this vehicle, registered owner of this vehicle, is reported missing. There's a child that's been reported missing, and this is the vehicle they were last seen in. These are immediate alerts that go to our officers in the field, to their phones, to their MDTs, to the software that's working in the background. This does none of that. This reads a license plate, reads the speed. If the speed is 10 miles an hour or over, it identifies it and puts it into a queue that starts a review process at the company level, back out to the police department level, and we have complete determination as to whether or not a violation occurred, whether or not there's liability for that violation, and whether or not the citation will be issued. So there's a little bit of a misnomer on, you know, the two systems and how they operate. Legal and compliance challenges, we've seen it, right? We've seen it in some other communities where they've struggled to be accepted at the community level, and questions about whether it was implemented properly have certainly raised eyebrows and questions, right? So I'm doing what I can to make sure that there's a lot of transparency on the front end of this, the communication with the public, these meetings, our data reports will be obviously in front of you for consideration if anyone could review these documents, right? To show whether or not we actually have the data to support the corridors that we're going to try to identify. And then the cost of implementation, contract obligations, which we've already done. We've gone through that. You've seen that. You've reviewed that contract. And then the potential for errors. There is no any system has fallacies, right? There are situations in it that we are going to make mistakes, right? There's a legal process that we're going to put in place here with the city that provides the citation issued. There's a administrative review at the police department level, and then there is always the opportunity for that individual to take that to our municipal court for judicial review on the citation with the same level of proof necessary to be handled in the municipal court, with the exception of that the citation is issued to the registered owner. Still have to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that they were speeding, but we don't have to prove that they were driving, right? We only have to prove that they were the registered owner of the vehicle, because this is a civil complaint, not a criminal complaint, and different thresholds for what that process looks like. I have worked with our court supervisor and with the judge on the language going to be utilized in the citations. So we're working through that process now. Next steps. When we look at where we're at, right? So we're in that July month time. We're finalizing the enforcement corridors. We're going to go to that. I think the first one will actually, I'm working on the data dump that this requires. What we'll be bringing to you will be roughly around August 3rd with our first few corridors for consideration. The complete the traffic analysis, which I'm in the process of now, coordinate site selection and installation plan with the vendor, in the process of doing that now. There's only one location that's fixed, so that's the only coordination on that. The other's a mobile trailer. So that's really about me working with our Public Works Department to make sure signage is ready to go, so that when you guys approve whatever corridors you approve, we know what light post, what post, where does the sign go, are we meeting the statutory requirements, all of those provisions, right? August, we will start to install those required warning signs after council has made a decision on the zoning, on the corridors. Complete the equipment installation and test the calibration of the equipment. And that's done by the company with our team. And then develop the citation review, appeal, and court process procedures, which we've already begun that process. And we still have some weeks and probably months to get that finalized. September and October is really conduct that public education outreach, get the notices out, start cycling the machines and equipment through the zones to start that 35-day warning period. And then we're looking at late September, early October, late October, maybe even early November, depending on the corridor and the timing of each one of those warning periods, to get actual enforcement started. And for the fixed location, they're going to be working with our streets department, our operations department, to make sure they get the proper permits and then get the equipment installed for the fixed location. Program launch, we'll begin the APHIS enforcement operations again. It'll be a rolling phase for this because each corridor has to have its own 30-day warning period. My intention is not to just say, okay, here's your 4 corridors, day starts today. I intend to go through each corridor with a rolling cycle of 35 days to move it. Now, that doesn't mean that it'll be 35 days in this corridor and then 35 days starting later in this corridor and then 35 days starting later in this corridor. They may start 10 days apart. They may start 14 days apart. It depends on how many notices I can issue out. I want there to be a warning period in each direction, in different segments, and the period of time will be 35 days for each corridor, but when I get the trailer into those corridors is going to vary. So it could take anywhere from 35 days to really 60, might even take us 90 days to get all of the corridors, the true warning phases they need under the statute. We need to monitor the compliance, the citation trends, and the safety outcomes for that, and then provide periodic program updates to the city council. That's required under the statute, right? So we're going to build an AVIS page on our web page, and that'll be just part of this process that we have to identify the number of citations and the associated fees and fines that have come in under this program, and all that's transparent for the community to see. With that, and again, I'll just touch on these real quick again. These documents will be what you're getting regarding each individual corridor, and this will break down by segments if it's a segmented corridor. Not everyone is. So far, I have 3 of these corridors prepared for you. You have 2 today, and all of them are segmented. But we will get to corridors that are not segmented, right? They'll just be a stretch of road from A to B, right? These were longer roadways. They had maybe some different infrastructure. There were different considerations. I thought that it was better to segment them. As a corridor, they will be one corridor, but you'll have data to support them in a segmented way so that I think it's more defensible to say, the segment here, also has the same data to support it that this segment over here. Some are stronger than others, but still the same type of data to support them. And with that, I'll be happy to take any questions you have.
Thank you, Chief. Any questions? Mark's up already. Okay, Mark?
Hey, Chief, thanks for the informative presentation. I really appreciate it. I do have a clarifying question on you regarding the notification of the 30 days. So the city technically could not put a notification on the website that says the City of Evans, I'm just going to use this kind of as in general, the City of Evans is going to use traffic radar enforcement cameras throughout the city. They are subject through basically any place in the city at any time. This is your 30-day notice. It has to be specific corridors and different sections each and every time we move those mobile cameras.
So, no. Based on the interpretation of the law, I think we could do what you're suggesting. We could make the notification on the web page as long as we posted the signage in the corridors that were identified and the signage was out there for 30 days. That could meet the requirements. However, under the new part of the ordinance, there is a requirement to issue some type of warning during that period. So I would need the trailers in those corridors issuing some warnings during that time frame. It doesn't say that I have to have it there for 30 days consecutive. It doesn't say that I have to issue a certain number of warnings. It just says that warnings will be issued or shall be issued. And I don't want to err on the minimum of what our statute requires, right? So what I'd like to do, and this is more of a process than it is a requirement, I would like to move the mobile trailer throughout each corridor for a period of time, probably 10 to 14 days in each one of the corridors, in each direction of travel, day after day, just kind of moving it throughout the segments, or multiple days in one area and a couple days in another. For that time frame, issue a significant number of warning citations for the individuals that are speeding in those corridors, right? And then just kind of gradually move through the city corridors one by one and give them a 35-day window. So go beyond the statutory requirement there, go beyond the interpretation of the statutory requirement for warning notices. Make sure we have good, clear signage. We're not hiding the ball on anybody. Everybody knows what the corridor is, where it's identified, and whether or not we're operating the machine in there. And we won't have the machine in all of these corridors all the time. That's just not the way it works. But they have been given warning that it is a corridor. They have been issued warning citations in there at some juncture during the period of time. And then our operation, I think, will be smoother, more transparent, maybe more acceptable by the community. No hiding the ball, and I think it'll be a better practice. Again, the focus on this isn't to start generating revenue, it's to start slowing our residents down.
Okay, great, thank you. And one more last question too. Can you clarify when you were discussing the multiple citations, so say one license plate gets tagged 5 times along 37th Street. I'm just using that as an example. Did you say that we could, after a couple citations, decide to, instead of having them issue the traffic citation via the camera, you could issue that into the court?
No. So what it says is that we can use the camera. So the first violation of an AVIS type, anything using AVIS technology, cannot be issued unless the vehicle is traveling 10 miles an hour or over the posted speed limit. Any second and subsequent violation under AVIS technology can be issued anything between 6 and 10 miles an hour over the speed limit.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah. But we will have a process where they could take that AVIS citation, ask for an administrative review at the department level, and then my department would have staff look at the evidence, look at all of the photos, video evidence, the vehicle, the make, model, the license plate, make sure it all is clearly visible, we can articulate that that is absolutely the vehicle, that that's the registered vehicle, that that's the registered owner, and we could make a determination of liability. And then the individual who has that citation could then still take that to our municipal court as part of their due process for the violation.
Because here's my thought on process on this is, okay, they're going to get issued a speeding ticket, and hopefully that deters them to slow down. However, if you have a person that's like, hey, I'm just getting, there's no points on my license, there's no this, there's no that, and I just keep getting these camera tickets. So some people, they're not going to learn their lessons. So it gets to the point, it's like, well, you know, Colorado has that law. Once you get so many point violations, your license can be suspended, et cetera, et cetera. I just wanted to know to where the point is if the same car gets tagged multiple times for constantly speeding 10 miles over or 6 to 10 over or whatever, when does that get to the point to where we can step in and say, you know what, I think this needs to be written in a court because this person needs some points on their license now, and because obviously they're not learning their lesson.
So we would have to do that without the use of AVIS technology. The mandatory statute provides for AVIS to be used in this manner and this manner only. However, as you see that most of our corridors are mobile, the only place that that's going to be fixed is out off of that 37th Street between 47th and 35th. So we'll have that type of data, and we could identify that type of an offender out in that area and just engage in our normal traffic enforcement strategies. And if that individual was observed in excess of the speed limit, they could be cited as a normal traffic citation, and that would bring them into municipal court.
Okay, great. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Councilmember Delaney.
Great presentation, Chief. Thank you. Wanted to dig into the report a little bit because I have some concerns. So let's start before we get into the report. Highway 34 and 85, that's a suggested corridor. Those we would have to coordinate with CDOT. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. That's the easy question. So segment 2, literally where we've decided we're going to put the permanent AVIS station.
Yes.
I am not a traffic engineer, but I don't understand why that road is still 35 miles an hour. Once we divided it and put a raised median, I know people who go down that road and all of a sudden look down and, oh my God, I'm speeding, because it does not feel like the speed is the right speed. And I think your report shows that, because one of the things on page 22 in segment 2, it says that recently there's been lower volume of complaints, but still sustained speeding. So it seems like people aren't slowing down, but nobody's upset about it anymore because we now are on a divided thoroughfare.
Well, I'd like to jump in on that for 2 points.
Okay.
One, the road was under construction for a year, so complaints disappeared.
Okay.
Yeah.
Completely a year's worth of data, basically, completely disappeared. The second piece to that, where the data was absolutely supportive of speeds increasing in that area. The question as to whether or not it should be a 35 mile an hour zone. If we were to make a change to that right now simply because we updated the infrastructure for the location, we'd be turning it around very shortly when they put a school on the roadway down the road, when the remainder of those residential properties get in there. Those 4, 6, actually I think there's 6 or 8 collectors that come into that intersection, none of them controlled by traffic devices other than a stop sign. So starting to get a 45 mile an hour roadway when we have stop signs that are the intersection related to it is going to cause us to have accidents, because 45 miles an hour turns into 55 miles an hour really quick. And that car that's going to turn into that roadway to try to accelerate, there are no acceleration lanes in those roadways. There's some turn lanes in them, but acceleration lanes aren't part of that infrastructure. So we would see an increase in traffic crashes related to that intersectionality between the collectors coming out of residential communities into what is a little bit more of a a safer roadway because of the way it was designed, but it doesn't eliminate the dangers. And increasing the speed to 40 or 45 miles an hour will increase the number of people that are traveling at 45 or 48 or 49. And when you have turning movements on there that are not regulated by traffic control devices like a light, a signaling device, that'll tend to increase our crashes there as well. I think we built the road for expansion and for growth. And if we were to try to manipulate the roadway speed now, we would just be turning around and doing it again at the next development phase for whatever may happen. So that's one of the concerns. But one of the pieces of data that really decreased is calls for service and complaints of speeding out there. And that's because the roadway was under construction for a year and pretty much closed down for a good portion of that year.
Okay. And then you mentioned something that I was very shocked by, I think. Are we charging a vehicle and not a person?
No, we're charging the person.
Okay.
The registered owner of the vehicle is the person who is liable for the fine under the civil statute.
Even if they're not driving?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. Well, that is why there are no points assigned to the violation. That is why there is no criminal requirement to meet this particular burden of proof. Right? It's the registered owner of the vehicle, and then the proof has to be that they are actually speeding, and that's what the photos, videos, and license plate read will provide for us. Like, we won't issue the citation if we don't get a clean read on the plate, if we don't have a clear indication that that vehicle plate matches the make, model, and color of the vehicle, the registration of the vehicle. And then the vehicle owner, whoever the registered owner, is liable for the violation, not the actual operator of the vehicle. Now, under the new part of the statute, they have a right to contest and say they were not driving the vehicle. It doesn't necessarily remove liability from them, but they can contest under that process.
Okay. Thank you.
Councilmember Neal?
Chief, I think you answered this one for me already. If once we put up the violation signage, our officers can still write tickets if they catch people speeding in that corridor, correct?
100%, with one exception. They can't write a ticket while the Avis equipment is in the immediate area, right? So if, let's say I have segment 2 just for, well, I won't use segment 2 because the Avis is there, right? I'll use segment 3. The mobile trailer's in segment 3, and we're writing an Avis violation. You can't then turn around and also stop them 3 blocks down and write a speeding violation. The Avis is going to capture them. So you either got to void one or the other. I could void the Avis violation and write them a physical violation because I have them, on a radar or a LiDAR, right? Or I can void the radar LiDAR test and have the Avis issue the citation. Can't do both for the same segment of roadway. Now, if they were speeding at, right out here by the entrance to the, to the ECC, and then I catch them down at 35th Street speeding, that's 2 separate incidents, right? So maybe I have Avis down here, and then at 35th Street, my officer happens to be doing traffic enforcement down there, and they catch them speeding there. They could theoretically get 2 separate violations because they're just in completely different segments of the roadway. But I can't give them both the same violation, 2 violations for the same act. So they're caught by Avis and they're caught by an officer a block down. I can't give them 2 violations.
So what I'm wanting to know is when you're during the sending out the violation notices for the 30 days, can an officer catch them speeding in that area and issue a citation
for
that period?
Based on my interpretation of the statute, yes. Based on what I want to practice and do so that I make sure the community is getting equitable treatment, fair warning, and all of that, my intention is not to issue a citation right after they just got an Avis warning, right? So, again, not for the same event, If they were different days, different times, absolutely, they could write that citation, but not on the same event.
I mean, if an officer catches them speeding during the warning violations part, can they issue the ticket and then you void
Yes,
Davis
can.
one? Okay, that's what I wanted to know. The other thing, one of the people that called from the east side on fireworks had apparently had some knowledge of what was going on with this, and they were wondering why LaSalle has 40-mile speed limit, and coming out of LaSalle, you can accelerate up to 55 miles an hour through Evans, and then when you get to Eaton, Eaton apparently had CDOT or requested a study by CDOT, and their signage or corridors, the CDOT told them they needed to put signage out further and lower the speed limits at a greater distance from the town. And they were curious as to why Evans couldn't do something like that, because they've long complained about to the city about speeders on the east side and been concerned about the speeding on 85 through there.
Sure. So, in my review of Highway 85 from the South Platte River to the junction, the speed limit does reduce. It reduces from 50 down to 45. The book for traffic engineers and for code for our traffic and roadway signage and speed limits and all of the different pieces that go into that makes our compiled statutes for Colorado book look like an evening read. Okay? It's a significant document that they utilize to identify traffic engineering on a roadway. Those roadways, the speeds, the signs, the permits, all of it's controlled by CDOT. So that's where the collaboration and corroboration with CDOT comes into place. I can't place a sign out on 85 unless it's temporary without CDOT's authorization. So those signs that we place showing that it's going to be a corridor, we're going to get cooperation with CDOT before we can ever place them. The speed limits are determined by CDOT. Could I potentially petition that reduction of speed? It actually, as you come through LaSalle, we have very limited divided highway at that location. They have a very small median. It could easily be jumped. The speed limit's 40 through there. There's a park immediately adjacent to the roadway and multiple businesses. As you come into Evans, you start hitting the 394 corridor there, and then you come over the Platte River Bridge, and then we are divided by an actual median, either grass, fence, concrete in a different manner. And that is some of the indicators that they use to determine what the speed limit is going to be within those corridors. However, it could be something that I could bring forward to them. Wasn't something I intended to bring forward at this time, but if it's something the council would like me to do, I could certainly talk with them. We're going to be coordinating with them anyway, so I can bring it to their attention and they could do their own independent evaluation of what those speeds are. It might reduce it by 5 miles an hour. That would be what I would probably think they might do, if anything, because as you hit from the bridge to about 38th Street is 50 miles an hour, and then it reduces at 45 there, all the way to the junction.
Right. I know this individual is constantly concerned about speeds, and apparently she had some information that Eaton had requested a study by CDOT for that for whatever purpose. And they had said that they needed that the speed cut down too fast, going from 55 or whatever down to 35 through Eaton. So they needed to post more signage, or CDOT had to do it, post more signage to give them, people more of an opportunity to slow down.
That's one of the criticisms that's been used in another community, right? Was that the trailer, the device, the Avis device was placed very close to a speed increase, actually, not a reduction, but an increase. So you could see a speed limit for certain miles per hour, but the zone that you were actually getting read in was 10 miles an hour slower than the speed sign you could actually read, right? We don't have a lot of that in our community. We've done some movement through our corridors, and I don't have that very often within our corridors. Our speeds are pretty consistent through the corridors. As a matter of fact, 42nd Street, that's 45 the whole way through, right? So, I'm sorry, 35 the whole way through. Evans, 37th Street, it does reduce to 30 miles an hour when you get around the school, but we do have pretty ample signage. We've looked at that. The speed reduces only by 5 miles an hour as you move through on 85. So I'll have my team, just have a conversation with CDOT about that and whether or not it's something we need to consider or concern, but I'll have them have a conversation with them because we're going to be talking to them anyway.
Well, thanks, Chief. I was aware of this, but I just never really considered it. And
if they tell me there's a process that needs to be done, I'll bring it back to council and you guys can decide whether or not you want me to do it. But in just having conversations with them, it's nothing to just say, hey, what is it process to do this?
thank you.
Councilmember Johnson.
So I do not support you spending time on that. So I'd like that to be a vote of the council, because everything you just said is the truth. It's 5 mile an hour reduction. It is not the same situation of going from 55 to 35 like it was in Eaton. I don't know about the story in Eaton, but it is a different bag of marbles. So I don't think it's worth your time. And so I'd like the council to vote on that if we're going to direct you to do that or not.
I agree.
Oh, I absolutely agree. We should not waste the time on it.
Okay, I just brought it up because
We appreciate
one of my
that. No,
constituents brought it up to me along with fireworks.
No, we appreciate that, but it's not something we need to do.
And we
I
understand.
agree as well.
So, yeah,
Okay.
Thank you, Mark.
thank you.
For me, there are just two things I wanted to bring forward. Number one, thank you for all of the communication. I'm not on any social media except Instagram. I don't want any of the other. I feel like it's too much at me. But even on Instagram, I saw it posted multiple times that we would be here discussing this. Please come. Please ask questions, if you have any, or just learn about this. So I've got to say, for me, just seeing that from one platform, I think the communication was great. And I wanted to thank you for that and thank the city for getting that out there. So for me, when we do get this implemented, nobody should be going, huh? What? I didn't know you guys were doing that. Why didn't you talk to me? We are.
We'll be prepared for that to happen, though.
I know it will.
Absolutely.
I know it will, but that maybe that's where we could help you guys out and be talking about it with our constituents as well. And then my other question was for the fixed Avis camera. I'm trying to articulate, if we ever wanted to change that corridor, aren't we able to, as long as we do all the proper notifications, things like that? So even though for now it's going to be fixed, we may leave it there a year, 2 years. Aren't we allowed to move it eventually if we so choose?
We are. We have total control of the corridors. Each corridor has to be approved by council. It can either be done in the ordinance or through resolution. I chose resolution just so they didn't have to come back and change the ordinance for just that specific reason. Why change the whole ordinance? We can just make a resolution, bring it to council. You guys can review the data, determine, you know what, we've slowed traffic down over there. We no longer want to spend our resources at that location. This location over here may be a better location. Let's look at that data, and then we can make a decision on that. So that's completely up to the council and to the city in what that where we identify corridors, where we identify fixed or permanent locations. The corridors just really allow for the mobile use.
Perfect. And then last but not least, thank you for the clarification too, between the just checking for speeding, reading the license plates, things like that, versus the other systems. I do appreciate your clarification with that. Thank you.
There's only one other thing that I'd like to bring to your attention, and that is one of the big concerns with this particular system was the amount of a fine for a speeder that was traveling 25 miles an hour or over this posted speed limit. The new ordinance update directly addresses that specific situation, and in our ordinance, I took the statutory language right out of the new statute to say that if you're doing 25 miles an hour or over the posted speed limit and you're caught utilizing Avis technology, you will be issued this violation and this sum. So our ordinance will cover that.
Thank you. Mayor Clark?
Councilmember Delaney already mentioned what I was going to bring up, and I was in agreement with that, so I'm good.
Thank you. Councilmember Neal?
Well, I had someone that was concerned about this because they had received a ticket in Hudson and has been carrying on for over a month about it to me off and on. And he decided that he couldn't come at 5 o'clock and spend 3 hours here to protest this. So, you know, if you're all you want to do is complain and not come and state your case, then I don't have any empathy for you. So I just wanted to put that on the record because it's very frustrating trying to get people to come here when they're complaining about various things and get them to speak to council so that I'm not have the burden as a councilman bringing it here and having people question whether or not people actually have talked to me about this stuff. And I am the only elected official that I know of that when asked for business cards, about business cards, I said I will only accept business cards if I can have my home phone number and home address put on the cards. And that is the reason why I get all these calls from different people. Why people call me from Fort Collins to tell me that there's something going on Tom Martino that's derogatory about the city. And that's why I get the calls from Greeley and residents and county residents, because I'm here to serve, and I'm not here to make a big buck and go for it, go further in a political career. I have no issues or want to do something like that. So I just, when I come here and I have concerns from my constituent, I'm going to try to express it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Crabtree?
Refresh my memory, Chief. Once a corridor is established, it doesn't lapse, does it?
It does not. It doesn't lapse. We don't have to restart the 30-day warning period just because we moved the trailer. There's some consideration of that. There's some concerns of that. One of the communities, didn't use the corridor for close to a year, right? So I will ensure that we're moving the trailer throughout the corridors once we identify them routinely, so that we are. I do think it's, it should be managed in a way that is going to fairly identify the corridors for the community and have consistent enforcement within those communities utilizing the system. So we'll put a plan together at the PD level that makes sure we're moving it throughout the corridors kind of regularly to make sure that we're not leaving any one corridor kind of unattended with the Avis technology for extended periods of time.
How are we going to handle commercial vehicles in the corridors? You said that it automatically issues a citation, but commercial vehicles are running through there, and clearly the owner is not driving that vehicle.
Well, it's going to come back to the registered owner of that vehicle, the corporation, correct? And we have opportunities to hold them liable for this process as well, just like if it was a rented vehicle or other pieces of, a leased vehicle. So it's that same process.
I'll be curious how that pans out, because if I have a fleet of vehicles and we have two people speeding, I wonder on an HR level how I can handle something like that. There'll be a lot of pivoting in the near future. And then the last question I have is just the data group. What kind of data you were looking at to select your areas and to make them priority? Was it just, I know you just didn't throw it all together, but were there certain benchmarks that you were
Yeah, so
focusing on?
interestingly, the state statute doesn't set any threshold,
No.
none at all. It just says you need quantitative and qualitative data of crashes, speeding, complaints, right? So we started looking at our traffic data, our speed, where are our speed enforcements? It's 37th Street primarily. It is our biggest corridor, right? So that was and then 35th and 37th is our number one traffic crash location in general, repetitively, right? So those areas were quickly identified. And then the remaining corridors are volume, our traffic volume, right? Our arterials, east and west arterials, our north and south arterials that run into Greeley. And then we started to look at the data as to whether or not it supports it. And I can't even tell you whether the data will support every one of those corridors just yet, right? And I can tell you that the three I've done, I think based on the information and the research that we've done, I think they will, but that is a decision for you. You will get these reports, the two examples that I've given you. You'll get one for every one of the corridors. You'll be able to see the data for yourself. Some of the corridors are stronger than other corridors, but again, there is no threshold by the state statute. I think what you just need to do is look at it and see, is there a consistent, persistent speeding, traffic crash, and safety, public safety circumstance there? Do we have repetitive complaints? Do we have data to support that? And if we do, can this be utilized not as a sole traffic enforcement use, but as a secondary traffic enforcement use, right? Can we use it to help us slow down those speeders in and around those corridors? And all this is I'm just going to give you a bunch of data and a pretty well outlined report telling you, kind of why and how these corridors were identified, and then, whether or not you want to identify that as a corridor, and then we can use the machine and technology within it. Or if you want to say no, that's perfectly okay too. Maybe there just isn't enough speeding or traffic crashes within a corridor to say, 32nd Street is a pretty good example. We don't have a lot of crashes between 29th and 23rd. But we do have a lot of speeding, and when they do crash, they tend to be in someone's backyard, right? So, they go through ballards and into a backyard, right? So the severity of the crash is something that's part of that, coordination. So maybe the data won't fully support that particular corridor. Maybe it will. It's going to be your decision. I'm just going to give you as much data as I can, 5 years worth, which is what I'm required to under the statute, and try to provide a well-organized report for you, so you don't have to spend a ton of time trying to dig through what matters, and then you guys can make a decision. I think it's perfectly acceptable if you look at some of these corridors and say, you know what, I don't think so, not right now. Let's test it out in a couple of our busier corridors and see if we decide it's the right thing for us. And then you can always add the corridors at any time.
I appreciate that we're using data and not just throwing something at a dartboard. And then that way we have something to stand on when residents go, why did I get this in this area? We can say the data supported it. A couple more last questions. On 37th Street, the standalone camera that's fixed, it captures both lanes of traffic, both directions?
Correct.
Perfect. And then lastly, will we as council be getting monthly updates on how many citations per corridor these are coming out, or is that quarterly, or will we ever hear any reports at all from your department?
So I'm mandated under the statute to give you an annual report. So
I'd like
that
more than annual, but.
for sure. I can put together a report that could be kind of automated for corridors if that's something the council would like. Once we get up and operational and we see what the staff time and all those things are, we can certainly dictate what that looks like and how often you want it.
I can't speak for my fellow colleagues, but I'd like to have a pulse on what's happening and
Sure.
But if it's not a huge burden upon your department, if it is, then I'd pass, but.
I agree.
I don't know about monthly, but
Quarterly?
a few, yeah.
Quarterly.
I don't think it will be a gigantic lift. I won't know for certain until we start to see things develop and how many corridors are out there and how often we're, actually identifying violations. But it's easy enough to come back to you and say, hey, this is what we're getting and this is what we can do.
I really appreciate your time and love the presentation and all the work you've done to get this going.
Thanks.
Hey, Chief. No other questions?
I have one thing.
Yes.
I just want to expand on one thing that Jeff was bringing up, that the chief was too humble to admit. There is already 56 pages between the two corridors of data saying this is why we need to have these corridors. It is available on the city website on the agenda package for this meeting. So people can read it themselves.
Oh, don't kid yourself. He reminded me several times last week.
It's a lot of information.
So,
And each corridor is going to be built off that framework. So they'll be
so
identical.
thank you for that report. That's all I wanted.
Yes, thank you. Okay, if there's nothing else, the council meeting will start in exactly 21 minutes.